Let's go. I hear a song. I hear a cry. Some say that it's wrong, but I can't see why. All that I know is when I hear it, it fills me so, and I feel a spirit. I heard a wise man once say that we'll be stuck in a pit if on the back of progress we try to sit. So tell them people, I say, take my calypso music to the mountain. To the mountain, yes. Let every drop of earth hear when I sing. 'Cause out of them Barracuda, calypso rising, yeah. We throwing off that old time style. We putting on a brand new smile. We rising out of the ghetto of third world stagnation. We're reaching for tomorrow with a world vibration. My calypso heading for stardom real quick, because it is world music. No rhythm and blues, yes, look, jazz and reggae. I say they all pay their dues in much the same way. Yet every day, they keep evolving, finding more and more ways to keep on revolving. You see, I heard a wise man once say, we'll be stuck in a pit if on the back of progress we try to sit. So tell them people, I said, take my calypso music to the mountain. The mountain, yes. Let every drop of earth hear when I sing. Because out of them Barracuda, calypso rising. We're throwing up the old time style. We're putting on a brand new smile. We're rising out of the ghetto of third world stagnation. And we're reaching for tomorrow with a world vibration. My calypso heading for stardom real quick, because it is world music. So hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm. Calypso rising and taking its place in the world. Hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm and fill my soul. Hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm. Now this song was born through chains and tears, but still we traveled on through freedom, yes. No more a song just to please the master, no. We traveled on, and yes, we crossed the river. I heard a wise man say that colonialism will reduce culture to old talk and become. Tell them not my kind, so take my calypso music to the mountain. so rising. We rising, yeah. We throwing up the old time style, and we putting on a brand new smile. We rising out of the ghetto of third world stagnation, and we reaching for tomorrow with a world vibrant in much the same way. Yet every day, they keep evolving, finding more and more ways to keep on revolving. You see, I heard a wise man once say, we'll be stuck in a pit if on the back of progress we try to sit. So tell them people, I said, take my calypso music to the mountain, yes. Let every drop of earth hear when I sing. Because out of them backyard, calypso rising. We throwing up the old time style. We putting on a brand new smile. We rising out of the ghetto of third world stagnation, and we reaching for tomorrow with a world vibration. My calypso heading for stardom real quick, because it is world music. So hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm. Calypso rising and taking its place in the world. Hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm and fill my soul. Hit me with the rhythm. Hit me with the rhythm. Now this song was born through chains and tears, but still we traveled on through freedom, yes. No more a song just to please the master, no. We traveled on, and yes, we crossed the river. I heard a wise man say that colonialism will reduce culture to old talk and become. Tell them not my kind, so take my calypso music to the mountain, yes, let every drop of earth hear when I sing. Out of them backyard, calypso rising. We rising, yeah. We throwing up the old time style, and we putting on a brand new smile. We rising out of the ghetto of third world stagnation, and we reaching for tomorrow with a world vibration. My calypso heading for stardom real quick. Why? We had to do it one more time. My calypso heading for stardom real quick. Why? All right, I will do this one, right? My calypso heading for stardom real quick, because it's world music.
Wow. As we say back home, why she could sing. She could sing. Lady Adana, my calypso rising to stardom real quick because it's world music. A little fusion there of calypso and jazz. Two mother musics, you know. The calypso is the mother music of the English-speaking Caribbean. Jazz is one of the mother music of African Americans. Of course, you know, African Americans have the jazz and the blues as their mother musics, and we in the English-speaking Caribbean calypso. A little bit of calypso jazz there. Lady Adana, my calypso rising to stardom real quick because it's world music. It's our gift to the world. And we have given so many gifts to the world. You know, when God was sharing gifts, he gave us in the Caribbean so many, so many, so many. And we must celebrate them. We must celebrate them. Good evening to you. A little bit of upliftment there. Upliftment. An old man once said that colonialism would turn calypso music into old talk and picong. But we have crossed the river and we have turned our calypso into a statement of freedom, always, always, always reaching for tomorrow with a world vibration. All of you are joining us, whether in Guyana, outside of Guyana, in our Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Antigua and Barbuda. Good evening to all of you, wherever you are. Whether you're in North America, Canada, the United States of America, good evening to you. Good evening to you, Brother Yuri Westmus. Yuri saying that song touched my soul. It does. It touched my soul too. As we say in Guyana, it make my skin grow. And she just gave a wonderful rendition. Those of you who are joining us from further afield, I see my brother and countryman, Ashley, my fellow Buxtonian, who is a faithful. He joins every night. And as you know, it's night. It's night now in England. And so many of you stay up to join us. This is a struggle. And the struggle, you know, means that we have to burn the midnight light. A little more oil in my lamp, keep it burning until the break of day. Good evening to all of you, Vashti. Good evening to you, Kenneth DeFlormont. I hope when I return to Maryland in a couple of weeks. I know last year I bumped into you at an All Year's Night party. Good evening to you, Kenneth, and the DeFlormont family are big supporters of this program. And all of you in Maryland, welcome to Politics 101. I would like to say a big shout out to some of our people in Cleveland, Ohio. I traveled there this past weekend for the funeral of my aunt, one of my aunts, who lived in Cleveland, passed away, and she was buried this weekend. And I traveled there for the funeral. And quite a few of our brethren and sistren who reside in Cleveland came up to me and ensured that they told me that there is a presence, a Politics 101 presence in Cleveland. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to those of you who joined us from Atlanta. There were a few Atlantans there at the funeral, and had a good time to chat with family and friends and Guyanese. And I want to say thank you all for the support. Thanks for the support, because without you, we cannot do this. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to all of you. Andrea Cato, Robin Morgan, Golly God. Well, you know we move in Guyana. We move rough and rude sometimes, and sometimes we keep it straight and narrow. But we're always there about. Good evening to all of you. Terence Beaton, I know Terence is part of that music group that it's Terry Weeks group out there in England. They have this virtual music group. They meet and they play all these and they dance virtually and they date virtually and so on and so forth. Good evening to all of you. And I see my big brother, Ernest Elliott. My big brother, Ernest, is on tonight. Ernest, of course, is a veteran, a politician, former member of parliament, senior member of the People's National Congress, in semi-retirement now, but his children are keeping up the good works. Ernest has joined us. Good evening to you, Ernest, and always enough respect to you, because without people like yourselves who clear the way so that we can see through, we would not be here today passing on the baton. And our time is fast approaching when we have to pass the baton on to others, because this is a relay race. It's a relay race that we have to keep on. This is not a sprint. It is not a sprint. This is long distance. This is relay, because the struggle is long. Sometimes it gets fast at some point, and then it slows down. Thank you to all of you who have expressed yourself. My brother Wayne Caesar. Wayne, I know you are due an appearance on Politics 101 sooner rather than later, as why our Jamaican brethren will say, and sisterin, soon come. Rastaman, always a pleasure to have you on, my brother. Always keep on forwarding, because you know the Rastaman never go back. Rastaman come again, or forward into this generation, into the next generation. Good evening, Althea Jones, Stanley Wilson. Welcome to Politics 101. Tonight we're going to continue our conversation. So you know, this morning the WPA held its weekly press conference, and we called at that press conference for a meeting between the opposition leader and the president. We feel that we cannot go to an election without all sides agreeing. It's a recipe for trouble. And we feel that the two leaders have to come together now and agree on the rules for these elections. And so the WP has taken a bold step to say, from what we are seeing, if we go to these elections without both sides agreeing on the rules, we are heading for trouble. And none of us want trouble. As Bob Marley says, we got to come together to solve this little trouble. And so therefore, we are putting it out there to the two leaders, come together and settle this problem of biometrics and the voters list and all that stuff. Ultimately, it's GCOM's call. But the politicians can stymie GCOM, as we notice the PPP is doing. And we are saying, stop, and let us agree on the rules. So we made that bold call today. We also talked at the press conference about this issue of the PPP withdrawing money from the Natural Resource Fund without itemizing it. Brother Terence Campbell, who's the opposition representative on the NRF committee, made this revelation that they're drawing out money and they're not saying what the money is being spent on. And WPA says that we have to balance between allowing the executive to govern without bullying them, but also ensuring that they are transparent and that they give an account for our public monies that are spending. We also talked about the cash grant fiasco that continues. this registration business is unnecessary and it's causing much more confusion than solving problems. There are databases that the government has that it can use to distribute this small piece. Why they are opting for a registration that is cumbersome, confusionist. These are the same people who are saying they can't have registration for a clean voters list, but they can go around having registration for the $100,000. In any case, they share out money before, fishermen, sugar workers, and they didn't ask them to register. Why you want to register now? And it's causing more confusion. WPA says, we think this registration thing is not working, and we can use other database to get monies to people. Welcome to Politics 101, and we're ready to go. My guests tonight are WPA co-leader, Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, veteran political activist, who is a regular participant in the program, and Deon Abrams, the chairman of the WPA. Deon Abrams, of another generation. He's the chairman of the WPA, and they are on tonight for discussions. Let me bring them in. Brother Deon and Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, and they're ready, rapt attention, and ready to go. Brothers, good evening and welcome to Politics 101.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Thank you for having us.
Good evening to you, Dr. Hines, and your viewers. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Brother Deon, let me start with you, since you have been missing in action for a little while. The WPA made the bold call this morning for the opposition leader and the leader of the PPP and the president to initiate talks aimed at a political solution around this issue of the upcoming elections. Talk to us about what motivated the WPA to make such a bold move.
Well, Dr. Hines, we have to consider the nature of the demographics of our country and the historical occurrences relating to that demographic, particularly the situation between the two major races of the country, the Indians and the Africans, and considering also what happens at elections. Historically, elections have always been a point in time where racial animosities flare. We live good, relatively good for 4 years, and then 5 years come and there are issues surrounding race and ethnicity and all of that. We believe that the introduction of big money into the country and the nature of the current administration that seems to be hogging that money and using it in a manner that really spells one-sidedness and unfairness, unaccountability, as you just said, that this has put another scenario into the picture where people are wanting to own the resources for the people. So the quest for control of the economy is one that not only deals with leadership for the country as a whole, but it has its ethnic side to it. And we believe that because of this, come next elections, if there is no agreement in terms of, the parties meeting and being of one mind, settling differences, bridging the gaps that are there in GCOM and in all the other agencies, that we can have an explosive situation, as we've always been having all the time in these elections.
Thank you very much, Brother Deon. Brother Ogun, let me come to you, because one of, I can hear some people say, well, the WPA is being alarmist, that, all is well, and, the opposition is just making trouble, and, there is really no need for us to panic. All is well in Guyana. How do you respond to that as you make this call for, if you will, a pause, and for the sides to come together and to try to bring about a political solution?
Firstly, I think the WPA has to make very clear, and we are making clear to the country, that as a political player in the equation, we take our responsibility very seriously. And the WPA is not timid about confrontational politics. We're not timid, on people playing hardball politics. But at the end of the day, as a party, we believe it is our duty as political actors to listen to the country and to listen to people. While there's not a lot of street activity in the country, there is a lot of frustration and concern and uncertainty about the future. A lot of tension is being built up there. And we know, because we are political practitioners, in a sense, we are like the doctors. A patient may not be feeling too well. He or she may not be certain what is the problem. They got to go to the doctor. And the doctor, as a professional, may be able to diagnose that your problem is a very serious one. It's not just a minor issue. And we're acting like the political doctors in the equation. And we're saying from all our experience, both in the country and watching the world, and watching the, how society like ours degenerate and how quickly they could be degenerate. And we are seeing signs that are far from being encouraging. And we think it is reckless not to take into consideration those realities and consciously seek to introduce some political method or agreement that could, in some ways, help to ensure that at the end of these elections, the outcome is accepted by all contestants. And the WPA, rather than be an alarmist, we rather to err on that score rather than to err on not being able to detect the trouble that is inherent in this equation. So the WPA is not worried about persons who say we are alarmists, because we know if the situation gets out of hand, it will take quite a lot. It will take quite a lot to bring things back to normalcy. And before we get down that road, we rather to invest in trying to save the country from going down that road. Because whether we like it or not, the opposition, if the opposition is faced with the determination of the PPP to force the country in elections without biometrics, without a new voters list, and without a level playing field, the opposition would at some point has to make up its mind on how it's going to deal with the situation. And I don't want to prejudge, but I know objectively the opposition can go into the 2025 elections without waging a decisive and a determining battle to get biometrics on a level playing field. And we are offering the country and the political players a chance to address this problem outside confrontation. Because if we fail to do that, we will have left with no other alternative but confrontation.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye of the Working People's Alliance there, and muted myself. Brother Tacuma, let me stay with you for just another minute or so. And I want you to address the issue of why we have to get an election right. Why? Because, I mean, some people may say, well, it's just another event. An election is just another event. And why the big deal? Even if it's not perfect, nothing in life is perfect. And let's press on, even if we have to go with an imperfect election. Why is it important? And when you finish, I would want Brother Deon to address that question too. Why is it important for us to get an election right? What is it about Guyana? What is it about our moment that we have to get this right, and we can't treat it as just another event?
We have to be very conscious that the country have a history of dealing badly with elections. And if you have that kind of history and it's not getting better, only getting worse, you're closer and closer, to the brink. But elections decide who governs, and who governs decide how the pie is will be shared. And in the context of the oil money, the contestation between the various sections of the community to have access and equal access to oil money will sharpen the whole contradictions in the society over the use of power. And in this particular case, the African community at this historical moment is in a situation where we own less than 10% of the economy. So we're in a bad place economically. And the way in which the PPP is governing, it is clear that they have no intention to redirect wealth to the African community in order for us to begin a process of trying to catch up with the Indo-Guyanese section of the community and the Portuguese section of the community. And this is more than just an elections for half of the country, because the Amerindians are in the same position. And unless we fix governance in the country and we face the reality that politics is not there just for power for the sake of power, political power directly impact economic activity and the distribution of wealth in a country. So what is at stake here is not simply an elections, it's how the future wealth of the country will be distributed, going forward. And as I said, many people probably don't realize what we're sitting on in terms of oil money. If the PPP is allowed to continue in power for the next 5 years, given the Indian domination in the economy and the way in which the PPP is governing, it's going to be almost impossible for Africans and Amerindians to catch up economically with the Indian Guyanese community. And instead of independence correcting historical injustices, which is what independence ought to do, we are adding and worsening historical injustices and inequalities. And this is a decisive elections because, in my judgment, and I think it's fair to say in the WPA judgment, we don't believe that the African community will accept another elections where they feel it was rigged. They were not going to accept it. I think the last elections only go the way it went in terms of acceptance because it occurred in the height of the pandemic, which forced people off the road and create a certain atmosphere. We're not likely to be in the same situation in 2025.
We're not likely to be in the same situation in 2025. Evan, Radhe, Prasad. Evan, please don't interfere with people on this thing. I mean, you're a nice guy. You come on to the program. You're a pro PPP. You can make your comments, but don't antagonize people here. Allow us to view the program and to pay attention to the program. Do not antagonize the people. You know, you know better than that, brother. Brother Deon, you've heard your brother Ogunseye. Your take on why is it that we must get this election and future elections right in Guyana?
Dr. Hines, Oguna said a lot of what the WPA is thinking in relation to those elections that are coming. But with the equation of equity, equality, and the fight for control of resources is one thing that is driving the people's thinking. And we're in an era where there is a lot of unfairness. There is a one-sided, basically, distribution of wealth by the PPP, the exclusion of others, particularly Amerindians and Africans, in the equation, and the old quest towards total dominance is creating in the African community a sense of despair, a sense of urgency, and a sense that, you know, it will be hopeless unless there is a change. And that change is what the community sees is possible through elections. Elections are the machinery through which we're hoping that that change will come. Now, the PPP, from its current disposition, seems to believe that it can buy Africans by throwing a little cash to a few, giving them small contracts, and you know, like recently, some youngsters came to me from one of the villages out here and say, man, if you want anything, you know, just tell me, and we and the VP close. You know, if you want the playground fix and so on, we and the VP. So they are of the opinion that they can throw some cash around to our youngsters, and that will essentially somehow dampen the aspirations of Africans in relation to their own stake in the development of this country. But when it comes to elections, people's understanding of where they are, it changes tremendously. All right. The WPA's experience is one in which we've had crowds at our meetings. I remember the meeting, it was 1992, I think, at Kitty, where we had a massive turnout, right? And we were of the view that from all the receptions that we were having around the country, that the WPA would have done well in the elections. But when the results came out, you realize that people backed into the corners of race. And so we were left basically with one seat in parliament. And that happened for 3 elections and so on. You know, Brother UC, Brother Rupert, and so on were in parliament on that basis. So coming down to crunch time, this country can explode because people's feelings are going to take over. Right? The sentiments that the PPP believe that it has, you know, going into African communities, trying to win over youngsters who are the lumpen elements, former prisoners and so on, giving them the assurance that, you know, if they can control African communities through these agents, at the end of the day, that is not going to work.
Deon, let me take you up on that point you're making and ask you a pointed question. You live in a village, and a village where people are not shy to speak about how they feel politically. Give us a sense of how people are thinking. What are people saying in a village like Buxton about the elections and the fact that, you know, there is not agreement on the rules between the 2 players, the government side and the opposition side?
Well, people are conscious of the reality of GCOM, Brother David. They understand the role of the chair, that, you know, from all appearances, from all of the actions of the chairwoman, that there is no balance in GCOM. That the 3 elected members for the commission and the 3 members from the government and 3 from the opposite side, that role of the chair as being the balancing act, that the balance has been tilted only to one side.
But what are they saying, Deon? What are they saying?
They are of the view.
Yes, go ahead.
That unless there is change, all right, and unless the elections are going to be held in such a way that they are assured that the results that are coming out of those elections are authentic and are representative, a true reflection of the people's sentiments and what people really want for themselves.
And what are the feelings on things like biometrics and a clean voters list? What are the ordinary people that you come into contact with? And I know you come into contact with them on a daily basis. What are they saying about those practical things?
But those things have to happen. They're needed things in order, if I'm talking about clean elections and satisfactory results.
But what are the people in your village saying?
Biometrics is integral to that. All right, a clean voters list is integral to that. And these are things that people need to see happen. All right. The view is that if these things are not in place, that we do not stand a chance of avoiding the rigging of the PPP. And that, you know, if we don't have it, then something will have to be done to ensure that before elections, it comes to fruition.
Brother Deon Abrams, chairman of the WPA. Brother Ogunseye, let me go over to you. The issue of the cash grant, it is not going away. It is not going away. We are hearing all kinds of things about the registration process. This registration, something that the government did not tell people about until they began the process. They sprung it on people. We are hearing that in a place like Region 9, people have to re-register because something went wrong. We are hearing that there is heightened registration. In some communities, there is not enthusiastic information. There's not information that is given in other communities. We are hearing all kinds of things about this process as the WPA lost confidence in this registration process.
The WPA have never had any confidence in the process, so we didn't have confidence to lose. But I think the process of demonstrated exactly what we expect will happen, because the government didn't really think out this policy carefully. It was never a policy that they embraced in a genuine way in terms of trying to deal with poverty. Okay, they are very politically opportunistic in the approach, and clearly they're putting in place a system that allows them to get some kind of advantage in terms of the collecting of data, because as the WP have said and other parties have said, and other persons who are familiar with these matters, we already have in the country, and the government has at its disposal, database that they could use to pay the money without all this confusion. So there must have had some serious political thought on what they want to get out of this new registration process. And we are convinced it got nothing to do with transparency. It got nothing to do with efficiency, but it got something to do with whatever plans the PPP is working on to rig these elections. And we feel the registration process is unnecessary. The process also seems, the PP seems to embrace this process because it reinforced PPP thuggery on the ground. You see, when you look at the other options that they had to use, it would take the process away from PPP operatives on the ground. But this process that they design is allowing the PPP operatives to emerge as important facilitators in the community. And in so doing, they hope it will enhance the PPP's election chances. So the scheme as designed by the PPP, in our view, is very deliberate. It is geared for partisan advantage. And it's again a demonstration of the PPP using the national purse to promote party interests. And we believe that, and we join with other groups who are insisting that this registration is useless and it ought to end. It should end. The WPA is of the strong view that nothing good could come out of this registration process, but more and more confusion. And they're laying the basis for people to feel, and a lot of people already begin to feel that the way the process is designed is to, at the end of the day, to exclude large sections of the population, particularly those sections that are not known historically in this. And people are talking about what happened in the COVID payout, where thousands of Guyanese never received their money. And nothing was done, to correct that injustice. And this confusion that they're creating on the ground with this registration is bringing back in the minds of many people that what the PPP probably is hoping, that a large sections of the population would not be able to get this money in the time frame specified by them, and then they may say, we close off. Now, this, in our view, would be a very dangerous path for them to walk. But it's clearly, from what we could see, the PPP is deliberately introducing confusion in the equation to give its party some advantage, and it is promoting on the ground a dependency on people to access this registration, this money through PPP operators. And this, we believe, is a recipe for trouble.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, co-leader of the WPA. Deon, let me bring you in here because, again, you were in a village there on the East Coast, and what this whole registration business, what is the feedback you're getting there?
Well, a lot of the people who are doing the registration are teachers, and they have a feeling for people who are simply going to be outside the registration process. What do I mean by that? Because some of them have been sending messages around that, man, look, we are willing to go to people's homes where there are shut-ins, where people can't come out to go to this registration location and so on. So they understand that even as people are going to the designated places, that there are people who are not going to be able to go to that location to be registered. So they are volunteering themselves out of their own humanity. It tells us where the entire process is basically falling short, that it's going to exclude people from that process. The other thing is that I got a call from residents of one of the locations in Sophia. Jagdeo announced that, well, look, not everybody is going to be able to get this money before Christmas. And in Sophia, the dates for registration were announced as the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th, or something to that effect. But they said they were going home one night and they saw a vehicle with agents who were registering people in a secret location in the Sophia area. Right? And those people whom they believe were being registered essentially were people close to the PPP. So they are using the process not in a fair, even-handed manner. In order to get certain people into the December, offerings of the grant, they are secretly registering people close to the PPP and excluding others. It really spells of a devious nature of the administration. And like Tacuma said, people are going to be excluded at some point. The other thing about it is that you go to register, as they're being told, I was told, but you are not given any kind of document, a slip or anything to confirm that you have registered. So there is no evidence in the hand of the person who has registered to say, I did register, like the pink slip that they gave for the COVID and so on. You have nothing now that you can use to defend yourself to say, I have registered. So if there is the contention now, like with the COVID, that so many people have this slip, they said they were coming back and they never did, that you try to contact the agency responsible for distribution, you were simply put off and you never received that money. Now it's going to be worse because you have no evidence of your registration. And so when the process began, people from the agencies, the Guyana Defense Force, the police and so on, they began actually with them. And they were required to give a certain amount of information. Then they were sent a link which required them to basically give everything about themselves, their families, a whole lot of information. When we click this link, they basically were seeking into all of your private affairs in your life, right? And there was an outcry about it. And so they changed the entire thing now to just going with your ID card and all of these things. But the devious nature, they have a plan. And as Ogun said, that plan must be tied to their intention to rig the upcoming elections.
Deon Abrams, chairman of the WPA, Brother Ogunseye, a couple of months ago, the WPA announced its office bearers and said at the time that it is reintroducing itself to the new generations of Guyanese. It's a party that has been around for 50 years. This year, November, mark 50 years since the WPA company. You were a founding member of the WPA at that time, and you did say that the party was reintroducing itself to the public. How has that been going? I mean, what kind of feedback the party has been getting as far as its activity over the last couple of months are concerned? You've been holding press conferences, been getting more coverage in the conventional media, etc., etc. Talk to us.
Yes, the WPA, and I want to start here because whether we like it or not, the reality is that Politics 101 and CAMS TV, and to a lesser extent, Walter Rodney Groundings, have been the institutions that keeps the party in the public space. But since COVID, Politics 101 and CAMS TV have been able to break the shackles of isolation for the WPA. So by the time we announced the renovation and the repositioning of the party, fortunate for us, we did it in a situation where the party prominence and the party sense of importance among the people was re-establishing a big way by those programs. And since we began to address a deficiency, which is the fact that we haven't been keeping press conferences on a regular basis, as most of the electoral parties normally do. We have now begun to do that. And from all the feedback we're getting in the community, the people are very upbeat that the WPA is intensifying its political work and its outreach in the community. And they are very satisfied with our efforts. But to be objective, there's tremendous pressure for the WPA to come on the road with public meetings and public activities to begin a more intense engagement. And people, I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to sound dismissive of other opposition parties. On the question of protests, the question of street activity, the question of speaking very frankly on matters, I think the bulk of the opposition supporters are more now dependent on the WPA to represent them in that form and to continue to promote narratives backed up by more public activity to enhance their interests. To be truthful, I think that the opposition constituency on the ground is divided between elections and militancy.
Or are they divided, or they want both?
Well, they want both, but
Yeah.
It breaks down is that the militants will say you're not going to win get a fair and free elections under the PPP until you could win the very conditions that the opposition outing, and you only could win it, they're saying, out of protests, on street activity, and we're not talking here about violence. What people sense is that the PPP is in a comfort zone, or at least they believe they're in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And if African community in the main, which is the main stake of the opposition support base, and it's there where the first injection of energies we gotta come from. People are convinced that once the African community begin to move and begin to rally in the streets at public meetings and rallies in large numbers, the whole ball game and the calculation, the PPP will change.
And the WPA is intending to move in that direction.
And they feel that the WPA is probably best placed and seems to have the temperament to go in that direction.
Brother Deon, you are there in Buxton, and people usually associate Buxton with WPA. Some people say it's the only place that we can call a WPA stronghold. And they feel very strongly there about the WPA, despite what the rest of the country may feel. Since the renovation of the party and the party's presence in the media and the conventional media, what are you hearing there in Buxton, in particular, and the East Coast in general?
Oh, but Dr. Hines, I want to correct you on that, because Brother Ogun spoke about Politics 101 and Kidaki's program and the Walter Rodney groundings. I have been to parts of this country. I went to Essequibo only recently, Queenstown, and people there know me. They know me from being on your program, right? I went, the Walter Rodney groundings, I went to Berbice, West Coast, Uptown, number 5, and all along the Berbice area there, people knew me. And they know Ogun, they know Walter Rodney groundings on Channel 9. All right? And they know that it is the WPA. So this foolishness with Jack Dio about, the party having 4 members and nobody knows about WPA, it is living in a cocoon, that basically is trying to fuel people's mind in a particular direction that we're insignificant and all of that. But we understand and know what WPA is doing. Only today I was dealing with a client, and she said, I was here this morning, but I called and nobody answered. I said I was in a press conference. She said, oh God, me forget that every Monday WPA does get a press conference. I just look at it, And she said, me like Dr. Hines bad. She's not a Boxonian, and she's not African. You understand? So people's mood and we went all the way to the quarantine. People were willing to become members of the WPA. They responded to our call for membership and all of that. I'm just saying that to make it clear that Jack Dio is living in a false world in relation to the reach of the WPA to the masses of this country. All right? And so the new leadership is welcome because people have a clearer understanding now of who sits where. And I believe it has reestablished the party as an organization with a structure, which is what people have always been wanting, and which has put a damper in Jack Dio's campaign and to relegate the party to one without any structure, any membership, and all of these things. So a lot of his cannon balls have been basically taken away from him, and people are happy about that.
Brother Deon Abrams, chairman of the WPA, Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, co-leader of the WPA here tonight. Thank you all very much, brothers, for coming on and ventilating on some of the issues that were raised by the WPA at its press conference this morning. Again, thank you all for coming through, and I will see you all or some other of the members of the party next week, Monday, as we engage in another WPA groundings. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hinds.
And thank you, the audience, for coming through. We are in the month of December. I know we're moving closer to the holidays, but you know, politics, we enjoy the holidays, but we still keep on engaging the politics. And I know as you prepare for the season, please leave some time for the politics. I would like to thank a couple of people who have made contributions to Politics 101 over the last couple of days. We'd like to thank you all very much, and to say that our fund drive will be in place throughout the season for the rest of the month, so you can make your donation to our program. Thank you all very much. Tomorrow night, Dr. Henry Jeffrey is going to be here. And you know, when Jeffrey's here, it's going to be a lot of bouncers flying. So until then, I want to say, as usual, we love you all, and we continue to stand with you, because if we do this together, then we will overcome quicker.
When we speak of civil liberties and civil rights, people are beginning to understand that the most fundamental of these is the right to work in our society. And what is occurring in Guyana is that the government is making political capital out of the indefensible position of one who is either unemployed or is very close to the line of being unemployed.
I want to say to you all, in no uncertain terms, that this government is disrespectful to black people. And if people disrespect you, you have a right to disrespect them.
I am saying now that we have started, now that we have come together, do not sleep. Don't let us go back quietly into the night. Protest must be the order of the day.